Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Municipal Solid Waste Advisory Council meeting. For the record, my name's Dave Yankee. I'm serving as the council president. And are we ready for roll call?
We are. I'll start with everybody in the room first. Richard Abramowitz.
Rich had shoulder surgery yesterday.
Yeah.
So he's probably not fully conscious. Right?
Yeah. I know. I'm just calling them just to have it on the record. Robin Nellis?
Here. Alanis.
Alanis, sorry.
Sorry.
Who do you represent?
I'm here for the City of Goliad, and I'm also on the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission.
David Dillard, Judge
Here.
Dillard.
I'm here representing counties underneath 100,000.
Ralph Gutierrez. Oh, wait, sorry. Never mind. Brock Lively.
Good morning, everybody. Hello from the Panhandle. I'm Brock Lively. I'm with the City of Plainview. I'm an official from a municipality or county solid waste agency.
Jeffrey Mayfield.
Hi, good morning. Jeff Mayfield, North Texas Municipal Water District. I represent a public solid waste district or authority.
Cheryl Murgo.
Here, I represent a regional planning commission.
Scott Pasternak.
Hi, good morning. Scott Pasternak with Burns and McDonnell, representing the general public.
Frank Pugsley.
Frank Pugsley with Park Hill, representing a professional engineer in private practice with experience in solid waste permitting and design.
Chuck Rivette.
I'm Chuck Rivette. I work with Waste Management. I represent a professional with experience managing a commercial landfill.
Steve Shannon.
Present. Represent a public recycling organization.
Scott Trevis. Oh, yeah, I think he's not going to be. Risa Weinberger. Just made it.
Perfect timing. I'm Risa Weinberger. I represent composters and environmental educators.
David Yankee.
Dave Yankee, represent the financial community. I'm with New Gen.
And we're done.
Okay. With that, do you want to go around and check with who's in the room here, or do we?
No.
Okay. Okay, just checking. All right, so the first item up is the Waste Permits Division update. Charlie?
Yes, so good morning, y'all. I'm Charlie Fritz, Deputy Director of Waste Permits Division. So kind of on division-wide updates, agency updates. One thing I wanted to show y'all is as part of Sunset, it's mainly part of Sunset, continuing updating the agency's processes through Sunset. We have been working, the agency has been working on a way to visualize where facilities are. And so this is kind of the first step, one of 2 to 3 phases the agency is working on of just agency-wide being able to show people where facilities are. So this is step 1. As you can see, this is anybody, and this is not live yet, so changes still may be made, but soon this will be available for everybody. You can come here, see what permits, all agency-wide, air, water, waste authorizations are around a place. And so, again, you can filter by program, so you can search for waste authorizations, the landfills, processing. I did not check if NOIs were in there. I think NOIs, recycling are in there because I think it's everything. So IHW's in there, scrap tires. So you can go around. This will be, like I said, this should be live soon, 2 to 6 months, don't know. So like I said, this is phase 1 eventually, but it's going to take some kind of major overhauls of the agency's filing system. Eventually we'll start tying actual permit authorization and the application to these points you can click on the map. So just want to let everybody know that this is coming online. This first part is coming online here soon. And then, but continuing, the agency will continue to roll out just kind of that public, how to find information from TCEQ, how to find what's near your your location. So that's what we're rolling with this.
Can I say, Claire, so would that have like the entity name and would it have the RN and maybe CN?
Yeah, you can click on it. It has the, you click on one of the, so yeah, I'll have the authorization number, tires, so program description, and then location. So it doesn't have the RN, but it has the authorization number. I guess if you see, and we base this off of lat long and then use software to, we use both address and then lat long to generate an address. And so if you see something completely wrong, let us know. We'll figure out a way of updating the information because it is coming out of our central registry database, which we fill in from information in the application. So if something's way off, we can discuss how to update it for your facilities.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question because I know we've converted the database to like a KMZ file that we can visualize.
Yep.
Some of the dots, it's like, in the middle of nowhere, and it's really hard to validate all that data. So I appreciate the effort that goes into something like this.
Yeah. So we may have just, if it's in the Gulf of, if it's in the Gulf.
I have actually seen that.
Yes. If it's in the Gulf, we probably kick those out. And we've been working with our central registry, our GIS team of fixing data points slowly. So they may be on a list of things we have to fix eventually.
And I'm sure you said when you expect it to go live?
Soon.
Soon, okay.
This is not our project. This is not, we are just, we have input on the project, but we are not running it at all. So it's our IT staff. Okay, cool. You can close that. I don't have any other real division updates. Just want to kind of cover legislative updates and Risa, I know you're going to talk more about specific bills. So far, there's been about 10,300 bills filed. That's Senate bills, House bills, and then joint resolutions, all of those. So 10,000 bills. Last year, I didn't do the right numbers. So, which is more than last year, or more than last session by about, not a huge amount, by about 500 to 600 bills so far. So right now, there's been composting related bills. In total, we received about, I think we analyzed about 30 bills that directly impacted waste permits processes. And then we had input on other bills that were more agency-wide. I say 30, it was actually more than that, but there were a number of companions where House bill and Senate bill matched each other. And so while it is another review, it's simple because we just copy our analysis over. So we analyzed about 30 bills and ranging from, there were several composting bills. There were 3 bills, about 3 to 5 bills on county regulations where they seem, the bills are focusing out mostly El Paso County out there of recycling facilities metal recycling. Seems to target metal recycling facilities. However, it was broad enough where it could impact TCQ recycling facilities. So we analyzed those because of the language. Most counties trying to regulate metal recycling facilities. There were 4 bills that directly impacted MSW permits, applications, processes, and then 7 recycling bills. Again, some of those may be companions. A couple about renewable energy recycling, turbine blades, solar panels, 3 scrap tire bills, 4 service contracts where about providing services in ETJs or the counties or the service contracts between service provider contracts, and then several ISW bills. So it's been, right now, we've had 5 of those bills have had hearings, one on the scrap tire grant bill, Garen's bill about TCQ canceling landfills that have been inactive for 25 years, the bill about renewable energy, and if you're recycling renewable energy components, you have to notify TCQ, and then Chairman Birdwell's battery bill about prohibiting batteries from the municipal waste stream. and then composting, coal course composting bill. So those 5 have had a hearing in their chamber. And right now, basically, what we're looking at is, and if you kind of just a brief overview of legislative, bills originate in the chamber of the author, Senate, House, and then they have to make it through, or a companion has to make it through the other chamber. So, and then has to go to the governor, pass by both houses, go to the governor. So right now, looking at the calendar, bills have to be, once we get into mid-May, the middle weeks of May, if things are not out of the opposite chamber, they're going to be pretty much dead. If bills are not out of the originating chamber by May, it's going to be unlikely that they pass too. So right now it's very busy at the legislative session. There will be, I imagine there's going to be more hearings here on both these bills that have made it out. They'll make it to the other chamber and there'll be hearings on those. And then there'll be a couple more bills. Chairman Birdwell has hinted that Senate Natural Resources is going to have a day looking at a lot of recycling bills. He mentioned this when talking about his battery bill. So I imagine there'll be several recycling type bills heard at Senate Natural. Now, whether or not they move is up to the committee, but it does sound like Senate Natural, at least, we're just going to hear several recycling bills. Any questions about legislative? That's all I have. Okay.
Can I just express opinions on some of these?
Sure.
Okay, it's wonderful to be able to support something for a change. So the bill that is, I should have it right, the number on top of my head, but I don't, that has to do with specs at TxDOT for soils, and this is not intended to be fill material or anything like that, but landscape soils.
Is that 736 in here?
736. Thank you. What that is trying to do, well, it requires a minimum amount of compost material in landscape soils for TxDOT construction projects. You may or may not remember that years ago, Scott McCoy from TCEQ and Barry Cogburn from TxDOT went around to every single TxDOT district and did demonstration projects showing how effective compost is in preventing erosion and establishing vegetation on steep slopes, that sort of thing. And as a result of that, I'm told, I can't prove it, but I am told that TxDOT for years was the largest market for compost in the world, the largest single market. What's happened is those landscape architects and engineers at TxDOT have retired, moved on, died, whatever, and they didn't pass that information on to the next generation. So in an effort to reestablish that wonderful market that supports, used to support, the composting industry very robustly, that's what this is, what this bill is intending to do. So it's a pleasure to be able to say, I'm in favor of one, and that's the one I'm in favor of. Okay, so the PFAS bill, which is 1674, and all, this is just my opinion, but, I am echoing in general the take on these bills of the U.S. Composting Council and the Texas Composting Council. Okay. So 1674, we'll call it the PFAS bill. I am not going to sit here and tell anybody that PFAS is great. It's not anything to worry about, that it's not dangerous or, anything like that. However, I will say that bills like this one that set extremely low parts per trillion level limits for PFAS in materials are problematic because they're getting out ahead of the science and out ahead of the research that's been done to justify what levels of contamination by PFAS are appropriate. There has, and I say that because there has not been adequate research yet, hopefully soon, but there hasn't been adequate research yet to address plant uptake, to address the effect of the composting process itself on PFAS. And we are just encouraging, the Texas Composting Council and the industry are encouraging the legislature to wait until we have a more scientific basis to set these limits, if limits are going to be set, and to really understand the consequences of what we're doing. Because the way this particular bill is written, everybody would have to do extraordinarily expensive testing every month for all of their material. It's difficult, I'm told, to even find a laboratory that can test at some of these levels, okay? And what this specifies is if you violate one of these several PFAS parameters in one batch, one time, let's say you test at the minimum frequency, which is every 6 months, that means you would have to store that material for 6 months. And if you break one of these limits, one of these regulatory limits, then you would have to dispose of all of that 6 months of material that you've been storing at a hazardous waste facility or have it incinerated. Oh my goodness. Let's wait for the research and the science to catch up to us before we embark on something like this that could just devastate the industry, really devastate the whole industry.
Who came up with these numbers?
I have no idea. If anybody else does, I'd love to know.
Yeah, just curious.
I don't know. So, okay, that's my soapbox on that one.
Lisa, this is targeted towards compost that has sewage.
Biosolids in it. Yeah, I should have said that.
Yeah, I mean, it specifically says or produce sewage sludge.
Right.
So there are some biosolids that aren't sewage sludge. So it's really sewage sludge. But how many compost facilities in Texas use sewage sludge in their facilities?
I have counted up that number and I can't tell you off the top of my head, but there are quite a few.
On a just a guess basis, what percent of compost facilities would you say? Is it like 5%, 10%?
If you include compost facilities all the way down to the lowest level of NOI, it's a low percent.
Okay.
You know, if you are talking about virtually all of the registration facilities composting facilities are going to be at the registration tier, probably because they're composting biosolids, because that's one of the parameters that kicks you into the registration tier. So
We're grabbing numbers. We had to do that for one of the bill analysis.
thank you. I actually counted them up not too long ago, and I didn't bring those numbers with me.
So on a facility count basis, it's low, but probably on a cubic yards produced basis,
on a
it's high.
cubic yards produced basis, it's high. And, you know, what I just like to throw out for everybody to consider is we know that the use of compost has tremendous environmental benefits in terms of protecting water quality, protecting water resources, reducing irrigation requirements, improving agricultural production and crop health. I mean, I don't have to tell you all of the advantages that composting has. And acting too soon before the research really supports this kind of legislation, if it ever does support this kind of legislation, could devastate an industry that by other measures is very beneficial from an environmental point of view. And it's an important process for managing MSW, given that organics, not biosolids, okay, but organics are the highest component, the largest component in MSW. And so if we're going to knock down the numbers that go to landfills, if that's your objective, then it's going to be real tough to do it without composting. And let's not shoot the composting industry in the foot without adequate research having been done. Okay.
To follow up, there's 18 facilities that accept sewage sludge and 2 that specifically call out biosolids as an accepted feedstock. So about 20 facilities total.
And there's, there are definitions of sewage sludge
Right.
and biosolids that you can get all tangled up in. Let's not try to go there.
Well, and some of the, what I think some of the large private, some will take biosolids, like, if I get it wrong, correct me, but I think Living Earth will take biosolids, but then what's the one in Dallas? They would not take biosolids.
Living Earth typically does not.
That's right.
Yeah, they do not.
Oh, what's the one in San Antonio?
There's several in San Antonio that do. There's
It's New Earth.
That's it. I got them backwards. New
Yeah.
Earth takes some, Living
and
Earth
there
doesn't.
are 3 others in San Antonio that
Yeah.
I know of that do.
Yeah, that take
And that
biosolids.
Denton does, that's the only
Yeah.
one in North Texas. There's actually a real need for biosolids composters in the North Central Texas region.
Well, in Victoria, for this very reason, for instance, is they've got to get it approved with council, but they're looking at presenting a recommendation to council. They stop accepting biosolids in their compost. So, because of this very issue.
And,
So,
like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that PFAS is not a concern. It absolutely is a concern. But let's be very mindful
Yeah.
on how we regulate this industry in an attempt to minimize PFAS. In case you don't already know, and turn me off if everybody's already heard this, okay? Because I'll go on forever if you let me. PFAS is in our food, PFAS is in our water, PFAS is in our milk, PFAS is in our blood, PFAS is in our sewage sludge. It's ubiquitous, and the composters have absolutely no control whatsoever on PFAS coming into their facilities, because it will be there whether there's biosolids or not. We're going to have PFAS anyway. Everybody's concerned about it, and everybody wants to do the right thing. But I'm concerned about this bill. Okay, and then the other one is the one having to do, I don't even know whether you printed this one out, maybe you did, haven't gotten that far. 2 more, the composting facilities in certain counties.
what number is that?
That's 2078.
Thank you.
Okay, that has to do, it's really aiming, I believe, at Travis County. I'm guessing, although I can't prove it, don't know it, I'm guessing probably an attempt by people in Lee County to try to keep food waste that is generated in Travis County from being composted in Lee County. And I'm not even going to get into that argument, but what this bill says is if you are in a county that has an ordinance that I'm paraphrasing here, that has an ordinance that requires that food waste be diverted from a landfill, in other words, be composted, then that material would have to be composted in the same county and you wouldn't be able to export it to any of the other 253 counties in the state that do not have such an ordinance. Composting is very fluid, all right? The markets are large. I know of materials that are transported from the Dallas area to Austin to be composted because that's what the market dictates, and it's, economical and environmentally accessible and allowed by regulation to do that. The travel distance typically for materials economic travel distance is usually about 50 miles, but depending on the material, it can be much, much longer than that. And there are a lot of folks that want to do the right thing and are willing and able to transport materials longer distances to get to a facility that's authorized to accept it. And I would hate to see legislation that would interrupt those markets and interrupt the ability of this industry to function efficiently and effectively. And I'm afraid that could happen. And then the last one is the one that I'm not sure.
Is that 2240?
Yeah, let me see whether. Yes, this is public meetings. Okay, so I've been in this business representing applicants, MSW facility applicants of one sort or another for well over 40 years in Texas, okay? I can tell you when I started in this business, the way I was trained in the very beginning as a baby engineer was keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, don't tell anybody what you're doing, you know, don't let anybody know what you're doing until the last split second so they don't have time to oppose you. Well, that didn't work. We learned really fast that that is not the way to do it. I would absolutely recommend that any applicant do the right thing, get to know their neighbors, talk to them, whether that's in a formal meeting or whether that's knocking on somebody's door and sitting down at somebody's kitchen table and explaining what you're proposing, explaining your process, maybe taking them to a similar facility, listening carefully to their concerns and trying to address their concerns, even if it means changing your operating plan, changing your facility, whatever. And we have learned over the years that that's much more effective, okay? So I would always recommend that applicants are open and meet with their neighbors and have conversations, you know, for better outcomes on both sides of the kitchen table, I'll say. What this bill requires is that if any legislator in a jurisdiction requests a public meeting, not a public hearing, a public meeting for any composting facility, could be, you know, the tiniest mulch site, you know, that a public meeting has to be held. I'm not against public meetings, but many times what they turn into is just an opportunity for people to yell at each other and argue, and there's not much result that comes out of them. I'm not saying we should never have public meetings, but I'm saying that I am concerned about requiring a public meeting if any legislator asks for one. Basically what that means is if one of their constituents asks for a public meeting, then the legislator is going to ask for a public meeting. And then TCEQ, I fear, probably doesn't have the budget or the staffing to attend a bunch of public meetings for these composting facilities. So although, as you heard me say, I think meeting with the public, dealing with the public, being very open is absolutely the way to go. I am hesitant to support the idea of potentially mandating a bunch of public meetings when you guys tell me, staff tell me if I'm wrong. It's my understanding that, okay, you have a meeting, people, you know, vent their concerns, you know, it's a screaming match or it's a tea party, whatever it is. It's my understanding that TCEQ still has to make their decision on whether to grant an authorization based on two things. Is it administratively complete? And is it technically complete? Is it technically responsive to the regulations? So I'm just afraid that this particular one won't accomplish a whole lot, in spite of the fact that in general, I'm for meeting with neighbors and the public when you're going through the authorization process.
help me understand, nomenclature here, because we have two 2078s. The first one that just says SB, that's the first bill?
Yes, that's the producer.
And then the CSSB is the substitute bill? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks. How many new meetings would that make y'all have for compost
For
facilities?
composting, we looked at we get, right now there's about 80 authorized compost facilities. That's permits, registrations, NOIs. 74 or 84.
If you go down to NOIs for recycling, which could also be organics facilities, it's a whole lot more than that.
Is this for new or existing?
The bill on the public meetings was
For proposed?
new facilities. That'd be for new facilities. And
So if it's an existing facility, it's not an issue.
Wait,
It's only-
wait. It says, in which a composting facility is located or proposed to be located, for which a permit, registration, or notification is required.
right,
So that's unclear to me.
we took it as, so that bill again is it's both coal course and Gerties. It is, so NOIs currently enrolled NOIs for composting do not have a requirement for a public meeting. There's no rules that say TCEQ will hold a public meeting for a composting NOI. And it's also for registration as well. There's a comment period for composting registrations, but there's not the opportunity for a public meeting for a composting registration. There's not an opportunity for a public meeting for a composting notification. And so yes, there is a pending application in Lee County that TCQ has sent a letter to Representative Gerdes and Coal Course stating that fact, that there is not, in rule, there is not an opportunity for a public meeting for a composting NOI.
Well, just looking at this, if it were to pass, it might mean more work for you folks, because when I read this, it doesn't look like it's just proposed, it's anything that's existing also. Like if you read the last sentence, request of a member of the legislature who represents the general area in which the facility is located or proposed to be located. So it sounds like.
Understood?
Yeah.
It's how the TCEQ operates is we have public meetings on pending applications.
Yeah.
We are, I can think of case-by-case basis of having,
So bottom
been-
line, you
yeah.
think if this were to pass, if it's an existing facility and someone calls for that, TCQ doesn't have to go because it's water under the bridge. It's already an existing facility.
we do not have processes set up for holding public meetings on issued operation authorized sites.
So do you think that the wording of this, where it says a facility is located or proposed to be located, would be problematic? Because somebody would try to interpret that to say that, let's say I'm a competitor of a facility. All I have to do is, pull the trigger.
That language is very similar to, I believe, water code statute that says when we hold a public meeting, it has to be in the county where the facility is located. So I think it's copying that language of saying that when we hold a public meeting, it's where the facility is located. It's not about holding application. And honestly, if that bill passes, we do rulemaking in the compost rules that says there's an opportunity for public meetings in notifications and registrations.
So you don't think if this were to pass, it would require you to attend or hold any more public meeting? You, as an agency, to attend or hold any more public meetings than what you do now?
Not for operating sites.
Yeah, we had 9 applications in the past 2 years.
I can see I can see where the language is coming from on the regulatory side, because you could have an existing facility that you're doing a permit amendment or some sort of modification to the permit, making it more stringent or whatever. And so obviously it's already existing and therefore it's located somewhere.
Yeah, that has an application is in-house. So yeah, there's always an opportunity for a public meeting on when there's a pending application. that has a public meeting. So we didn't envision this bill saying a normal operating site that's not modifying anything, that's just operating, that if a senator or representative requests a public meeting, but we do not have a pending application, we don't have the agency does not have processes for going out to hold a public meeting on an operating site.
I'll say from my experience, if you have an existing facility and a member of the legislature calls a public meeting, we'll all be there. So they don't need a bill for that to happen.
Right.
Good point, Sean.
I had a comment. Risa said something, I know we're in this room, but there's people listening. Risa made a comment and it almost sounded like a public meeting doesn't matter because if it's administratively technically complete, you're required to approve it. I think that's a misclassification in some ways. And I would like it a little bit clarified because if I'm the general public, I'm hearing that, I'm thinking, well, what's the point? And there are other audience members. So maybe if you guys can give a little bit, that a public meeting or a public hearing does give input that the TCEQ would consider. Because the way you said it's like, doesn't matter.
It does. Okay, let me clarify. I'm sorry. Public meetings do matter, okay? If nothing else, at the lowest bar that it'll clear is it's an opportunity for the public to have a conversation with the applicant and come to some understanding, that advances both sides' cause, which is what it's all about. All I was trying to say, and I phrased it inartfully, I'm sure, was that in the end, TCEQ is not going, tell me if I'm wrong, TCEQ will not deny an applicant because somebody screamed real loud. They still, if they scream real loud, it's not in compliance with this rule, that's different. Okay. But all I'm trying to say is in the end, you issue, as I understand it, you issue an authorization based on whether it is administratively complete and technically complete. In some cases, after listening to the public, who may propose to you that it's not administratively complete or technically complete. Does that make more sense?
Yes, it's just that the way you said it, if I was just a novice, I would think, oh, well, it doesn't really matter.
I'm sorry.
But if new information comes during those meetings that is pertinent to the TCQ's decision-making matter, they would take it into account. That's the only thing I was just trying to.
I apologize for implying that. I didn't intend to.
I think we've got that in the record. Thank you, Cheryl.
If you don't mind, I'd like to take a minute and agree with Risa on the Senate Bill 2078 from that West Texas and Northwest Texas part that doesn't have a lot of composting. The way this bill reads, I think it could probably cause some issues with trying to economically develop recycling and composting recycling in this region because we have smaller numbers and a lot of our counties, they need to work together to combine enough material to make it economically feasible. So I 100% agree with you, Risa, on that bill.
I've seen several facilities. I do feasibility studies too, and I've seen several feasibilities. I've seen several situations where a facility is absolutely feasible on a regional basis, not necessarily on just one county.
Anything else? Good.
I'm burned out.
All right. Anyone else have any other comments off that on these bills? Okay. Thanks for that, Risa. And thank you, Charlie, for that. I think we kind of combined those two together. So if I've got this, Charlie's finished her report. We've gathered Risa's input for the record. Thank you, Risa. Anna, did you want to do a second roll call or do we need to?
We don't need to.
Yeah, okay, great. Well then, next up, Megan's going to give an update on the MSW permit section.
Thanks, Dave. So exciting news for staffing. We have one vacancy right now and we're actually working on filling that. So we should, knock on wood, be fully staffed, hopefully for a while. It's nice. I hope y'all are seeing, the good customer service that comes with being fully staffed and hopefully a little bit faster review times as well, since we can share the workload across the entire section. So we'll see how long we can maintain. For major applications, we have 23 permits under review and 4 registrations. That's pretty much in line. I think the numbers kind of range from 22 to 27 or so, 28. So holding steady on our major applications as well. Wanted to give a reminder to the 10 remaining facilities that have not submitted their 2024 annual report. Only 10. They're getting weekly phone calls now, and if they're listening, we need your report. And if you happen to be a consultant for one of those facilities, please let them know. We really need their report. We have gotten really good responses on it, and the team have been working closely with the facilities to make sure the reports are on time. We've had a lot more reminders sent out sooner, and it's exciting that it's April and there's only 10 remaining. I think last year we were like around June and there were still 10 remaining, and we really want to get that annual report published by September, October timeframe. So we have to get all the data before we can publish, and it is a permit requirement to report. So for anyone who's listening, get those in. I did want to follow up on the draft regulatory guidance for exiting post-closure care. I sent the latest copy to the council members a couple weeks ago. So if you have input, please let us know. We'd like to get comments in the next couple weeks so we can continue moving through that process. We took into consideration the comments received from council members as well as some other organizations and private entities who weighed in on the draft guidance and made revisions as we could. So be sure to check that out. And like I said, you can email your thoughts or your feedback to us at our MSW proxy box. That's where we're taking those, collect those, and then we will move forward. Either we may revise again, or we may move forward with going through additional reviews. Any questions about that draft guidance? Reminder that trade fair is June 3rd through 4th this year in San Antonio. So I also emailed council members that you have an opportunity for free registration. Just let us know if you're interested in attending. And then for the general public, there's registration information online on our trade fair webpage. And we are presenting. MSW has a track on the second day, June 4th, and we have a lot of good presentations, and including one from North Central Texas COG that I'm excited to get a regional perspective on recycling. So a new topic for us. Wanted to also have a couple of reminders about rule changes that went into effect for 330.57. This is related to the application procedures. We updated those. They're now in effect, and permits and registrations must be submitted in paper copies that are in 3-ring binders. And now dividers and tabs are required. That may sound sort of unimportant to those who haven't sat with the volumes of a permit application. It really does help with the organization, the review, communicating with the applicant and the consultant about where, are we looking at the same page, quickly access it, and also helps the public if they do choose to access one of our hard copies so they can quickly go to the parts that they're interested in. So that is a requirement now. You'll see that as, if there's a deficiency list, you may see include dividers and tabs now.
If we go on the website today, pull up the rules, not in PDF form, but in the document, will that be,
yes,
the new language is there?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Can I ask, as a finance person and not an engineer that puts permits together, don't most people, when they submit a permit, have tabs so it's easy to go through and find stuff?
Most, but not all.
Okay.
And now it will be all.
Did you say permits or?
Permits and registration.
And registration.
Mm-hmm.
Because I quit sending you 3-ring binders for the smaller stuff, the NOIs, because you're always trying to give me 3-ring binders.
Right, yeah.
Because you take them out. so.
Absolutely. That actually leads to the next change. Instead of 4 copies of an application, it's now 2. So that's also in rule. And we also require an electronic duplicate of the paper copy. So that's really critical. You know, sometimes there's last minute when it's electronic, there's a last minute change that someone may catch, like, oh, there's a typo here, or oh, we missed this. And they change the electronic one before submitting it. And then it causes a lot of questions. When we catch one thing that's different, you know, there's a bit of a trust issue with the rest of the application. So just make sure that the hard copy and the electronic are exact duplicates. And I thought I had another one. Oh, and then the electronic copies are posted by TCQ on our waste permits pending applications page. We started that last June. So now any new applications, it's required that you provide that electronic copy. And it's administrative, technically complete, and notice of deficiency responses.
Have you decided how long you're going to leave those?
At least through the MTO, the motion to overturn period, which is 23 days after issuance.
Okay.
They may linger. We're working on following up to make sure they are removed so they're not there indefinitely on.
Well, there's a pro and con to that. I was, you know, want to clutter the applications page up, but I was wondering if there's a benefit for you and for others to have an archive section somewhere off to the side that once the MTO came and went, instead of just deleting, you just shifted it over.
So we currently, we post our applications on the WCC, which has an actual name, Web Content Center. So our online records should have copies of the applications, the notice of deficiencies. It's a little bit of a bear to get through sometimes. Some of the older facilities, they may have hundreds of records, but we do post all of that.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. Thanks.
And there's a little delay right now getting from the pending page or getting all the documents in WCC. It's just a backlog issue that we're working through. But if you're looking for a document and you cannot find it electronically or through Central File Room, let us know, because we reach out directly to our internal folks and work to get that posted.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions about the rule changes?
Just a comment on those electronic ones, if you're going through, you can do that tab thing too. So hopefully when they submit them electronically, they do that too.
Yeah.
Just a comment. I'm not an engineer. I'm just making your life harder, Frank.
We did not put that in rule, but it was talked about.
Yeah, there you go.
Hyperlinks, you can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you should have put it in there. Put it in
Slowly.
a 500-page PDF.
A lot of people like this.
That's the next round.
All right, any other comments, questions for Megan?
Yeah, Megan, just going back to the staffing update, is Steve Niemeyer now a part of MSW
Yes,
permits?
yeah, so
Right.
Steve Niemeyer was at TCQ for many years. He moved to Arkansas for a while and came back, and he's now one of our engineers.
Yeah, no, great hire. I used to work with Steve
Oh, great.
when I was here, so.
Awesome. Yeah, it's nice to see a familiar name, huh?
Yep.
I did want to give just one other update. There is a new 30 Texas Administrative Code website. And judging by some of the expressions, y'all have been on it, it's a little slow. So TCQ, you know, we link a lot of stuff online to 30 tax, so that way our rules are readily accessible, and in our forms. So we've worked on updating those links to the new 30 TAC webpage. And in our forms, we're simplifying that. It was a lot to go through each of our forms and updates like individual rule citations. So now we're getting it more to the general like subchapter. So leaving the rule references in there so y'all know what we're talking about, but we're not going to have a link. So we're going through that process. It might take a little bit of time to finish our forms. And I think we have something like 40 forms available for MSW alone. So it's just a matter of going through those and getting them updated. But yeah, there is a new 30 TAC website, and like I said, it's a little slow, but you get used to it. Slowly.
Is the address the same And it's just a refresh, or it's
No,
completely?
it's completely different.
Okay.
Yeah, the search function's different. The way the text is presented is different. I will say one benefit is you used to have to hit the continue page when you scroll down to the bottom and hit next page. Now it's the entire rule. So there's no next page. So if you're doing a control find, trying to keyword search, it does look through that whole page that you have
Different
open.
definitions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just didn't want anyone to be worried if they have that bookmarked and they're like, this hasn't worked in a couple of weeks. What's going on? It's good. That was it.
Okay, any more comments for Megan? Okay, questions? All right. Next up, Santos is going to have a business and program service section update.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Just a couple of things. I am going to talk a little bit about composting here in a second. Just wanted to give you all some updates. So we have, for the MSWRRAC and the nominees, we have received applications for 6 positions, including the 2 that are going to be vacated after this meeting. And so we have applications for all of it for those 6 positions. As we've found in history and still hitting us, we had 4 positions open for elected officials, and we didn't get any for those. So again, still something that we're trying to take bites of the apple at, if you pardon that. But just got a little bit of interest, but just no real takers on that. So we're continuing to work that. And what we're trying to do is there were two positions that are going to be vacated, and we're trying to get this going so that we can fill those 2, at least those 2, so that they can make the July meeting, which is the last meeting for the year. The other ones the other 4 positions won't be officially filled until September 1, which is the first day after the terms expire. So if we were able to do everything before that, they would do more than 6 years, and we can't allow that. So, but anyway, so right now our goal, right now we've gone through the applications. We're getting a packet together. That will go all to review, and then of course the commissioners will decide on the nominees and who all is selected. Right now we're looking at a May 16th, the packet going to the chief clerk's office for posting, and a June 18th agenda meeting. So that's kind of the schedule right now. And then we'll have more information as the reviews go on.
Can you just, for the record, state those 2 that are going to be?
Yes. So the 2 positions that we have that are going to be going off, I can get that back to that, is for who we have applications for is a registered waste tire processor. And that position expires on August 31st, 2027. But our past member has since left. And then the other position is for a representative from a planning region. And with Ms. Virgo retiring. So that's the other position. That position also expires August 31st, 2027.
There's one more. The financial position is also going to be vacated.
Yes, and that one doesn't expire until August 31st, 2031.
No, it expires in 26.
Oh, I'm sorry. It will. It does. It expires this year.
25, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 25.
And then the new one won't expire until the 31st.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got that. The other thing I just want to let y'all know is that we're in for scrap tires, moving over to scrap tires, and we're starting preliminary steps on forming a stakeholder group. We're trying to figure out a little bit more on, how the playing field is out there, how the business works. And just this past week, I talked to an individual employee of the TxDOT, and his group collects tires from the right-of-ways, the highways, all of that. And they take them back to their work yard, and once a month, twice a week, somebody comes and picks them up and takes them off to the end user. And he said that the cost rate right now is 30 to 40 cents per pound. And so as we were looking at calculating that, it comes out to about $6 to $8 a tire. And so for us, what we've always heard was that it was 3 to 4. And so that jump kind of, again, has initiated us, we need to really look at the industry a little closer. And so that's what we're hoping the stakeholder group will do. So again, preliminary stages, but I thought that'd be something good for y'all to know.
There's I'm not a stakeholder, but there's been a tremendous consolidation in the scrap tire business. And that's why I suspect the prices have gone up.
Yeah.
Not a lot of competition.
And that's probably so. We still have a lot of transporters. We don't have a whole lot of new processors coming on board. And so that is something that we've seen.
And the ones we did have pretty much consolidated.
Yeah. And so again, this something to really precipitate us looking into that a little closer.
I think Cheryl should look into it since she's retiring. Great opportunity for her to have a business.
Right on that.
So just time to talk a little bit about composting and the composting refund program. And I know we've talked about this through the years, but we felt it was time to just come up and just provide a little bit more updates, more detail on what all we're seeing. And this is mainly, so my group does the fees, does the tipping fees. And so one of the things that we also do is work on the composting refund. And so it's a refund, it's not a rebate. And so, so again, just a little bit of history authorization. The Health and Safety Code 361.013. That's the one that kind of talks about materials coming in and being composted. 361.0135 actually sets the requirements for the composting program. And both of those are statutes. Then our rules, which is 30 TAC 330.677, that again now provides the rule requirements for the composting program, the composting refund program. And so just, how it trickles down. And so again, composting refund program, facility operator must submit a composting plan to the ED. And we'll talk about how many we have of those. They can get up to 15% a refund off the waste fees that are collected by the work that they do on the compost. The refund also can increase to 20% if that operator says we're not going to receive any yard waste for disposal at the facility. The refund, it's not money that goes back to the, it's not a direct transfer of money that goes back to the facility. It's actually credited on the waste fee billing that's going to come up, that comes up that quarter. Again, for the fees and for the refund program, it's all a quarterly billing kind of system, where there's actually a hard bill that goes to the facility still, and that facility pays it to the TCEQ. For FY23 and 24, we had 15 facilities enrolled. That means that they had a approved composting plan. Out of those, 10 received a refund. And for FY24, same number, 15, and it dropped down to 8 facilities receiving a refund. The facilities receiving a refund number is based on a facility requesting a refund, submitting their paperwork for a refund for at least 1 quarter of the year. And so that's what leads to, there were 5 facilities that requested a refund every quarter, all 4 quarters for FY 23, 24. So we're saying that 5 facilities compost it year round, at least as it relates to the billing.
Can I ask a question? Do you know why that dropped from 10 to 8? It would seem like that's something, if you're in the business and you've been getting the refund, you're not gonna quit doing that.
We haven't gone out. That's one of the things I think later on that one of the things that we are going to look at, why they dropped. In a minute, we're going to get to another. I don't think we can go there. Okay, amount of refunds. FY 23, we had right about $760,000. In FY 24, it dropped to 618. And looking through my notes, there was a similar discussion with the MSWRRAC that was held in 2012, so roughly about 12 years ago. Both of those numbers were right, just a smidgen above $1 million or at $1 million. So in 12 years, it's dropped.
Santos, what's acceptable for a refund?
What's acceptable for a refund? So everybody submits a composting plan. The composting plan tells us what equipment they're using and how long it's going to be used, and then also the employee numbers that they have. And all that's calculated. They also give us the amount of time that all those pieces of equipment were used to move the compost around, to screen it out, those kind of things. And based off that, there's a formula that happens, and that's where they get that final number. And of course, they meet the 15%. That's what they get. But it's a formula that looks at how much the equipment was used and how much work was done at the facility to work all of that composting material. And again, refunds are a credit on fees paid, not direct money that goes directly back to the facility. Composting expiration. So the initial bill that was passed in 1993 and the actual program had a expiration date of September 1, 1999. The commission extended it on that date, and again, we looked at it in 2003, and it was again continued. And there was a requirement there that facilities submit revised composting plans, and those composting plans had a little bit more requirement of providing us with additional information, maybe more information on the actual work that was taking place, and then also the use of the equipment. The refund, well, before we get to that, the refund was initially developed for use for purchase of equipment, for operating the equipment, or for a contract for someone to come in with their equipment and also operate the entire composting program there. So, and that's all it could be used for. It can be used for anything exterior that or anything like that. So again, we're looking at it, and what do we need today? And by today, kind of been here for a while, so maybe what we need back from you all. Just feedback on composting processes and markets, and then also on information on processing costs, including equipment. We're looking at a lot of, looking at a lot of the plans again for this presentation, a lot of front loaders, a lot of heavy duty equipment that moves mounds of what I call stuff, but the debris, oh, yeah. Thank you. Around, also some screeners, some screens that they use, all that kind of stuff. And then also operators of that equipment. And so that's kind of what we're looking for. And any other comments related to this? Again, it's an ongoing program. We're seeing numbers drop on participants and actual year-round participants. We're also seeing the amount of refunds drop. So again, just an opportunity to come out here and just provide some information for y'all and anything that y'all, any comments that y'all may have or anything like that.
I have a question, Santo. Composting, it's really not in my central warehouse, but to Reese's point, it's organics that are compostable comprise the majority of our municipal solid waste stream. We also have significant needs for the application of compost material in agriculture to revitalize the health of the soil, less irrigation, less pesticides, et cetera. So it's an important thing that we really need to wrap our arms around more. If you could go back to your second slide, I have a question. Maybe it's just because, again, it's not my wheelhouse. Keep going, please. You're right here. Third bullet point. Someone can comment or help me understand that the refund would increase if they ban the disposal of yard waste at the facility.
Right.
I don't understand.
At the landfill. At the landfill.
Oh, at the landfill.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm
Because it's the
thinking.
landfill that's getting the refund.
Yeah,
I get you.
they're all composting facilities at a land.
At a landfill.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going, wait a minute. Hang on a second. Okay. Thank you for your help and explanation.
And I would just, I'm speculating, but, you know, the question of why has it been decreasing is just what we were just saying, is that it has to be at a landfill. And so most of the facilities, I'm probably going to generalize, but most are private sector that are not affiliated with a solid waste, like a traditional landfilling company. And so they're kind of few and far between. We're one of them. I'm just going to say we're one of the 5 that's got a year-round submission. Our facility.
Okay.
There is a way to get a refund if you're not at a landfill. You've got to basically be affiliated with the landfill, or you kind of have to go through a process to show that you are diverting material from this landfill to your composting facility, and then you have to have an agreement with that landfill to send the money through to the composting facility. And then that's been done before, but it's a little bit of a process to do that. But to the extent that most of them, more of them now are private composting operators, not necessarily at landfills. I agree with Jeff that that's probably why that number's dropping.
Okay.
I was going to ask you two questions. Risa just hit on one of them. Of the, let's just say 10, 8 facilities, whatever number you want, what's the split approximately between private and public?
That's a good question. I'm going to let you know. I didn't go down there and do that.
At one time, 10 years ago, when we looked at this.
I'm sorry?
At one time, 10 years ago, when we looked at this, the larger percentage, it was a split, but a larger percentage were public facilities in smaller counties type. Really, it worked for them. But I was just curious. And the second question was, do you know the approximate geography of some of those, especially the 2 that quit? And the reason I asked that is between the Great Freeze 2 years ago and the hurricanes last year, the compost yards in southeast Texas, they're kind of full. Right? I mean, we have a compost at one of our facilities, and we've had to all but quit accepting material because it's too much of it, and there's no market for it. You can't give it away.
And I'm going to say, just from thinking of the 3 or 4 that I saw that are not participating but have a plan. They've got an approved plan. I think 2 of them were around Houston up in that area.
I'm not surprised.
I think we have one in the valley that still is.
There were a lot of trees killed the last 2 years.
We're also seeing Santos, at least one landfill that has had a composting operation, but unfortunately, the next set of cells is going to need to move to where that composting facility has operated historically. And so I don't know if that would be reflected yet in these numbers, but I know of at least one that in the future probably will not be able to qualify for the composting refund for that reason. Unfortunately, that is kind of the reality of a landfill. When they need space, they need the space. And one other just point of clarification. On the title for your topic, it says ending composting refund program. We were just curious about what the word ending there meant.
Oh.
That was not
No.
literal.
No, it's not. It's
Right.
at this point, we're just taking information.
He's evaluating.
Yeah. You had us on the edge of our seats for that one.
Yeah, we're just evaluating. And again, I'm not from the permitting side. So, what all happens there, again, our folks handle more of the fees and the fee billing. And then also it's just something that we've seen. Again, every time they come in, just like we do a review of the self-reporting that landfills provide, we also do a review of all the different requests for refunds. And so it's a part of processing the billing. And of course, definitely a process of once the fees are paid, going back through it again and doing audits. So just some information that we've seen that, we thought we'd come back to you and present. If there's any more questions, thank you all.
Any other questions?
If we were to provide some of the requested information, we send it to you directly or? Okay.
Yeah, Santos.Olivares with a Z.
Or just send it to Anna.
Or send it to Anna. That's okay. Yeah, just send it there.
Is this also a general industry ask, or is it really just for our group?
General industry. I mean, we're curious too as to the drops and what that means.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Next item is an update on the Chapter 39 rulemaking.
Hi, y'all. Good morning. Teresa Sepulvedo, TCQ Waste Permits Division. And yes, I'm just going to share some information about the Chapter 39. Well, it's also Chapter 39 and Chapter 55 rulemaking. First of all, I'm not a rule writer on this project. I am a rule team member, so that means that I have been able to participate in some of this language, but I'm not leading it. I did want to speak about some of the history of this rule project. First of all, we went through our Sunset Advisory Committee review, commission review last year. Well, I guess it was actually 2 years ago, but we had Senate Bill 1397 passed, and that continued our agency, but it also recommended some of these public participation requirements. And the Sunset Advisory Commission's report had some additional recommendations for us. So that's what created this need for this Chapter 39 and Chapter 55 rulemaking. We went through stakeholder meetings last summer, and we had one in October of 2024 because the Houston meeting was impacted by a storm. So we had stakeholder meetings and received comments from the public last summer and fall. And then we started working on these proposed rules. So the main thing that you'll see, we do have to do the things that were required of us, but the main thing that you'll see in the proposed rules is that we have taken this opportunity to
clarify and codify some of the requirements that we've been operating under for years, but it just wasn't very clear in our rules. That was something that we heard a lot in the comment period and in those stakeholder meetings. We heard a lot that the public participation rules were just not very clear. And so that's something that was attempted during this rule project. We did add some definitions to that end to chapter 39 and 55. And when I say we added, I want to say that we're planning to propose these, but I'll get to the schedule of the rulemaking in a little bit. So one of the things that we are proposing is to change the text of the public notice in some incremental ways, not drastically, but for example, we're going to have to include the location that we put the electronic application on the website. We'll include that in the text of the notice. That's an example. We are planning to create a new section for the text of the notice, and that will become effective as of May 1st, 2026. That's the date we're proposing for anything that is declared administratively complete on or after that date. You would be required to use the new text of the public notice. That is something that we are specifically asking for comment on, whether that date is appropriate, whether it gives you enough time to make those changes, whether it gives us enough time to make those changes. So I did want to make that clear. One of the things that happened in the bill is that the bill required some air quality permits to extend their comment period if a public meeting is held. And it was in the bill as 36 hours beyond the end of the meeting, the public meeting. We overwhelmingly heard that the public wanted to extend that comment period for any public meeting, for any permit application. And so that is something that's being implemented. It's being proposed that we would include that extension of the comment period beyond the public meeting. Now, I want to make that clear that so if you hold a public meeting at day 15 of your comment period, we're not going to end it 2 days after the public meeting earlier than the actual time of your comment period. It's just if you had a meeting on the last day of your comment period, your comment period would be extended by 2 business days for past the end of that meeting. So that was another change that's applying to everyone. I do want to just make a little note here that one of the things that's very different in the text of the public notice is there are some changes for air quality permits. The text of the public notice has very specific requirements currently that apply only to air quality. And so they're making some more changes, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about, but I do know that some of your facilities have air permits as well. So I do just want to put you on notice for that. We will also be specifying how we're going to notice the public on how this extension will be made. Again, we're planning to electronically post this on our website after that May 1st, 2026 date. We're also going to allow for the opportunity to receive electronic notice if someone signs up for that service and provides an email address. One of the things that came out of the sunset bill that we've already implemented, but it is being codified in the rules. So that's why I wanted to explain that we're also just codifying some things that we've already been doing. An example of that is the requirement for the TCEQ to post those electronic applications, those copies of your permit applications. We've already been doing that since June 1st, 2024, but now we're putting it into the rule, into the public participation requirements, and again, specifying in the text of the notice where you can go and find that information on our website. Some minor changes, such as we're going to replace the requirement for a fax number for TCEQ for an agency contact, an email address. Some of the requirements that have been clarified or something similar to like the requirement that the signs and the applications must stay up through the entire process. So that's something that we've tried to clarify in the proposed rules. And that's through final action. And that includes the, motion to overturn and things like that. I did want to give one example of an air quality only requirement, and that is that they're being required to make larger signs for their application, just like MSW. So it's going to be the same requirement, but now it's going to apply to the air quality permits. So again, just a little bit on chapter 55, those same changes, extending the comment period, making sure that we cite to the correct text of public notice. And they did revise some definitions. Well, they revised the definition of affected person, and they're proposing some new definitions that you'll see in the proposed language. Okay, so now I just wanted to talk about the schedule for this rule project. I did share in the MSW newsletter some links, and that should help you to follow along with this rule project. Because again, so the first thing we're doing is we're going through exec next week. Exec hasn't seen this proposed rule. They can veto some of the items. So we're sort of on hold on exactly what's going to be in the proposed rule. But May 16th will be the date that the backup is published. And that's the, if you go to the agenda page that I linked to, and you pull up the June 6th agenda, as of May 16th, if no changes have been made to this schedule, you will be able to access the proposed rules in that backup. So you can link to it from the actual commissioner's agenda page. And then June 6th, they'll have the proposed rule in front of the commissioners. And then if the commissioners vote to propose the rule, then it'll be published in the Texas Register on June 20th. And the text that's published in the Texas Register will give you the instructions on how to comment that comment period for 30 days. We, of course, will still accept any written comments, but we have our smart comments that will allow you to electronically comment. And then we'll see where we go. Does anyone have any questions about this rule project that I may be able to answer? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I've lost track of where we were on this. Did we make any change? Did you make any changes to written copies of application being in public libraries?
The only,
No.
the only thing is just saying that it needs to stay through. That's in one of the clarifications, that it needs to stay through the entire final action. But no changes. No getting rid of the requirement or anything.
Well, I was thinking maybe you would force the library to say that they would take it, because the libraries don't like to take it.
Oh, no, but that is good feedback.
And I should also mention that we're planning to, anything that's not going to be in rule, we still have guidance that we're going to be working through after the rulemaking, but rule project first. Anything else? All right, thanks you guys. Just that MSW newsletter for those links to follow along with the project and see if there are any changes that come up.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. So our next item, we've got to elect a new MSWRRAC president. My term ends in July of this year. Actually, I will not be here for the July meeting. I've got a conflict with a member meeting for NewGen, so I've got to be at that. So this is officially my last meeting. I'm retiring from NewGen the end of 2026, so it didn't make sense to put in for a 6-year term to do this. So we've got to find a new president. I visited with Jeff. He was open to taking that on, but I also wanted to open it up to the floor if anyone's interested in putting their name in the hat to be the next president, to raise your hand or speak up.
I second Jeff's nomination.
Not 30.
Yeah,
Okay.
For whatever it's worth, I reached out to Jeff earlier this week and asked him about his potential interest in that as well, so.
Seems like you're the man.
All right.
All in favor of Jeff being the next president? Aye.
Aye.
I'll add that it's acting, the commissioners are the ones that nominate the president.
I was
so-
just getting ready to say
that, but we take the council's recommendation into consideration when picking a president.
Sure. Okay. Well, hopefully they approve you, Jeff, and they don't find any skeletons in the closet.
I'd like to say in regard to this, Dave, you've given stellar leadership to this organization. You've done a fantastic job. And Jeff, you're highly qualified. You got some big shoes to fill here, I think. I'm sure you will fill them. But I want to thank you for your leadership and your fairness and your open-mindedness that you've had. I'd also like to say, Cheryl, I think that you have had a profound impact positively on this organization, and I want to thank you for it.
Thanks.
For those of y'all that may not know, Dave's been serving on this council in one form or another for, I believe, 29 years now.
You and I came on at the same time?
That's why I know the years.
Does that come with some sort of retirement stipend?
No, but I'll tell you what, it's been a lot of fun doing this. I came into it because I've done the Municipal Solid Waste Full Cost Accounting Workbook in 1994. And so they had me come before this council back then to present it. And I remember I was so nervous doing it back then 30 years ago. But then Judge Davenport was the council president then. Well, you probably don't know him, but you and I know him. And so I got appointed to the board, but it's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot about the solid waste business from people on this council and prior councils, and we've always had great TCEQ staff, so I appreciate that, going back to the days of Gary Trim. So it's been a lot of fun. So.
I appreciate all the perspectives that you provide, especially in the financial side, but I also appreciate that you're not afraid to speak up and ask a question when you're not quite certain or don't quite understand it. And I'm sure I know, myself included, there have been times where I'm glad he brought that up because I wasn't quite clear on that. And I always appreciate and respect people that do that.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you. It's been great fun. You've helped the council so much through the years, especially as president now, and then, like I said, all the time you've served. So Thank you for that. Thank you, Cheryl. You've been a great asset to this council. I was ecstatic when you got nominated and chosen, and then you've been a boon to the COGS for a long time. So thank you for that.
Okay. So the final item, we'll go through and we'll a couple things. Approval of the minutes. I'd gone through them and they had looked good, but I just need a motion to accept the January 9th minutes.
So moved.
Okay, I've got a first from Cheryl, a second from Chuck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And let's see, we don't have any action items that came out of this. We've got Reese's comments on the composting in the record, so thank you for that. Public comments. I know Steve has something here he just wanted to touch on, but I'll turn it over here to make sure if there's anyone out there that has comments.
Okay, we'll start on teams first. If anybody from the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. Okay, no comments from teams. How about if there's anybody on the phone, press *5 to raise your hand. That's from the public. No comments.
Okay. Steve, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you all very much. A year or so ago, STAR, State of Texas Alliance for Recycling, had some interface with the Texas Economic Development Council, which represents the 725 local economic development corporations here in Texas. And it became apparent that that community is very interested in pursuing economic development opportunities around recycling. TARC also is interested in that. So in pursuit of trying to create an opportunity to have a dialogue about the issue of developing recycling infrastructure in rural areas, rural and underserved urban areas. To my knowledge, there's really never been any specific conversation about that. Not that I'm aware of in the last 20 years, and it may have occurred, but if it did, it went by me without me knowing it. So what happened is that we've come up with a workshop that we're going to have on May 7th and 8th at the Georgetown Sheraton Hotel. That's going to be concurrent with the STAR Annual Summit. And this thing, as corny as it may sound, it's called Tried It. And I'm sitting on my back porch trying to think, what are we doing here? We're trying to get Texas recycling infrastructure, economic development / initiative team. And this thing has come together with some robust speakers. We invite everyone to attend, to come and engage in this dialogue. But just to let you know the magnitude and the caliber of some of the folks that are interested and that are going to speak at this, it includes several members of this or some members of this organization, including Mr. Yonke, Mr. Pasternak, Mr. Lively, myself, Richard Abramowitz, Don Tracy, who is the president of the Capcog Economic Development District. He's also a dean at the Austin Community College. Aaron Livingston with the Houston Galveston Council, which is one of your people that you've mentored. We're excited about that. Carlton Schwab, who is the president of the Texas Economic Development Council. Chris Collins, who is out of Waco. She's with the Waco Chamber of Commerce and was instrumental in attracting NOF, which is the new glass recycler in McGregor, a $250,000 plant that's almost open, and Graphic Packaging International, which is they're under construction right now, $1 billion, 100% paper to paper products factory that they're building up there on the Brazos River right now. She was instrumental in that. Danielle Shiner with Houston Partnership will bring us an interesting perspective. Lou Cerna with Keep Texas Recycling, which is a branch of Keep Texas Beautiful, which you all are probably familiar that there are several rural communities that have little recycling centers, and KTR is the one that helps them get their equipment and brokers their loads and all that. And some of those could form the nuclei for larger regional approaches. We have Alexander Garfus with Balcones Resources, who, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, right now is the largest independent recycler in the nation. So they're going to bring a significant expected. Charlotte Pitt, who's with the Recycling Partnership. They represent manufacturing brand owners who want to pursue more sustainability with their products. And they come to this with the possibility of bridge loans and financing to help these things happen. Joey Harkrider with Green Guy in San Marcos will be a part of it. And we are very excited and pleased that Charlie and David Greer with TCEQ will attend this discussion. We've had a bit of a struggle getting this thing planned. We had originally planned to have it last fall. And then the legislative session comes in and you can't find any place in town to have a meeting. So we finally found the Georgetown thing and we jumped on it. I don't know that there's going to be a huge crowd. There will be some people there. But I think that the dialogue that will take place to examine the proposition of if rural communities and urban fringe, that are on the fringe of urban communities, will join together, then they could perhaps achieve the economy of scale necessary to support these facilities. And these facilities could be transfer stations, densification facilities, some kind of MRF. But what's killing them now is, like later right here with Goliad, it pick up the recyclables, it's an hour and a half to get it to the MRF, and then an hour and a half back with an empty truck. And that stuff's at about 500 pounds a cubic yard. Well, if we densify it at 1,000 pounds a cubic yard, we cut the transportation cost in half. Now, that might not solve all of the economic challenges, but it's part of it. What I think could very well happen here, that it could take this form where a group of rural communities agree with reservations and withholding final approval that because we now have our 20-year solid waste management plans, we've got the best data we've had in 20 years in regards to how much tonnage we have. The Recycling Market Development Plan is a fairly recent document, the most comprehensive examination that's ever occurred in this state about recycling. So we've got the best data that we're going to have. But I can envision where a group of communities may come together and say, without commitment, we're going to issue an RFP. Private sector, public sector, what can you do to help us make recycling more economically feasible in our community? And then depending upon the responses that they get back, they can decide whether they want to participate or not. I think what can often would happen is that a provider would say, you know, we can come in with a facility and we can build this facility, but gosh, we need a site or we need a rail side. That's where the economic development community can come in with this. And so there's never really been a concerted effort that I'm aware of where the recycling community, local government, and the economic development community have come together to try to make this happen. Nothing may happen, but we're going to have the conversation, and it's shaping up to be a very robust conversation. Mr. Pasternak will lead it off with the results and the indicators in the Recycling Market Development Plan about uncaptured tonnage and the need for infrastructure. And then it goes through a series of panels, economic development, local government, the recycling processors themselves, and so on. And then we'll end, Mr. Yankee is going to end it up Thursday morning with a presentation of how these kinds of regional entities can be examined from the financial standpoint. And then will ensue an hour and a half of a knockdown, drag out conversation of what is feasible, what isn't feasible, what are the challenges, what are the barriers, how can we make this happen? And then we will come out of this with a findings report that we will distribute to all of the COGs in the state, hopefully as some sort of a decision-making roadmap. Mr. Lively is going to be coming down and talking to us about some of the efforts that in that part of the country that they've tried to regionalize. And so we're hoping that through this, we'll be able to fill in some of the missing gaps in the decision-making process for this. That's what it's all about. You can find registration and all that stuff on the State of Texas Alliance for Recycling website. Just click on the button there. And we encourage participation in an open dialogue in regard to this, and are hopeful that it will yield positive benefits for the people of the state of Texas. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just say real quick off that, I mean, one of the things I'll be looking at in my presentation, some of the success stories with clients with finding markets to move it, because you've got to be able to do that in good times and bad markets. But one of the things we did with HGAC probably 10 years ago was the economic impact of recycling. And it was a pretty comprehensive study of what's going on in the 13 county area there. And it's not all just in Harris County, Houston. There's some good success stories. So we want to mention those, where they've gone to, now you've got firms using the products or what have you. So some success stories to get people thinking maybe in areas where they haven't thought before. So it should be good. Okay. If there aren't any other comments, closing remarks, we just have our next meeting July 10th. And that's it. And with that, anything else? Then if I can just have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.